Hello everyone, and as a sort of a celebration, thanks to God for making the channel grow much quicker than it has been recently. And we've reached 100 subscribers, Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem. We've even touched 101, so we thought we'd do a lecture to do with this idea of 100 and 101. Maybe it's relevant to the channel as well, but okay, might think about that. You can draw your own conclusions whether it's directly relevant. So what we're going to do is today we're going to examine a verse in the prophet Malachi, and we're going to see how the Talmud explains it. We're going to look at some amazing explanations on the Talmud, and we're going to take out some very important lessons, because of course we're not just doing this for the sake of making a lecture. We actually want to get something, take a lesson out of it where we can actually grow and recalibrate the way we look at life generally. Okay, so let's start off with the verse in Malachi. Okay, here we go. Right, so this is chapter 3 in the book of Malachi. It's talking about the whole book of Malachi. Is very, very amazing book. They all are, I'm sure. But the book of Malachi is very exciting because the last of all the prophets, so the last prophecies ever given by God are in this book, and this is the third of the 3 chapters, the last chapter, a very short book, and it's speaking about the rebuking the Jewish people for the things they were doing wrong at that time. You already see the end of the time of prophecy, because it wasn't having the effect it was, right? Because you actually see people answering the prophet back saying, you did this, and instead of saying, well, all right, I suppose so, or ignoring him, they actually say, what do you mean? We're not doing that. So I think we had a lecture about the idea of idolatry and prophecy. I think that was a Hanukkah lecture I think we gave this year. I'm not sure. But this is what's happening now. The Jewish people are answering back to the prophet, and yeah, as we see, because the shift in human consciousness between one which naturally looks to be subjugated to something higher and to connect to a higher reality, that transition to the Greek perception of reality, whereas it's more egocentric. It's to do with the human mind is the center of everything. We're not looking outside of ourselves, right? So that's a rejection of prophecy, essentially, which is the ultimate level of connecting to something above. Okay, so it speaks about here. It goes, send my angel. Let's talk about what God's going to do at the end of days. I'll come to you, la mishpat, for judgment, for maher. I'll be a very quick, swift witness with the machashvim, witches, or ones who do witchcraft, menafim, the ones who do adultery, the ones who swear falsely, and the ones who withhold payment from the workers, and etc., and from the downtrodden of society. They do not fear me, right? And this is a very interesting verse here, very fundamental one actually. I have not changed, God says, right? That's the idea that God can never change, because that's the idea of God is transcending time, right? But he says, just like I have not changed, the Jewish people will also not be destroyed. You can look at Rashi's explanation for alternative ideas. I'm not sure if he's saying exactly the explanation I'm giving. There are many explanations on all verses, but the idea is in this specific verse, we see the idea that the Jewish people will also not be wiped out. It's not possible. The idea being very similar to this idea which we spoke about at the anti-Semitism lecture we gave recently, is that the reason for anti-Semitism, we said, is the idea that we hold the mirror. We're the ones who reveal God in the world and God's ethics, and when people don't want to have good ethics, they want to just be evil, so therefore they have to get rid of that thing which keeps reminding them of the evil, which is the Jewish people. Right, that's why we're called the children of God, even though obviously God can't have any physical children. That is a child is one who carries on the task of his father. That's the idea of inheritance. Inheritance is you're inheriting the physical. Let's say the father's a farmer, you inherit the farm, so the son can carry on the farming, farmage or whatever the word is, in the tradition of his father. Maybe enhance it, bring it forward, bring it into the future. Right. So that's the idea. So just like God can't change, He's absolute. Therefore, the Jewish people can never be destroyed because they're the ones who reveal God in the world. So therefore, the knowledge of God can only come through the Jews, basically, because we're the ones who accepted the Torah, basically, which is the spiritual element of creation, which is basically God's divine energy and His teachings. So if the Jewish people aren't here, then there can't be a world, essentially. There's no purpose in the world. The whole purpose of the world is for people, as we spoke about in the very first keystone lectures, to be similar to God in order that we become like God and we experience that infinite pleasure of being similar and close to God. And that's only possible if we know how to do that here. And that's through the commandments, studying the Torah and keeping the mitzvahs, the commandments. Alright, so just some nicer side point there. Here we go, that's an example of what I said before. Hashem says, God says, your words have been harsh upon me, you're strong against me. Yeah, that means you're complaining to God or something like that. What have we spoken against you? They just deny flat out they're doing anything wrong. Yeah, and then God replies, because it's meaningless to serve God. What's the purpose? What benefit do we get from keeping His laws? Translate it, and for going about Keturaness. Alright, low spirits. There's a Rashi here, Shval Ruach, because of Hashem. Right, and they're saying, oh, we're doing it for no reason because we're not going to get reward. It's a mistake they have there. Okay, right. And then it carries on. Let's have a look at verse 17 and 18 now. Voyuli Omar Hashem Tzavakos, and they will be mine, Hashem says, towards the day, sort of foreseeing the day where I will make a treasure. That means the day of payment of the rewards. That seems to be referring to the world to come. And I'll have pity on him like a person has pity on or compassion on the son who serves him, right? And you can look at Rashi here as well if you're interested. V'shavtem orisim, and then you go back and then you'll see. That means you'll look retrospectively in hindsight. You'll be able to see Bein Sadik l'Rosha, the difference between a righteous man and an evildoer. Bein Oved Elokim l'Asher lo yavado, between one who serves God to one who doesn't serve God. Okay, right. So basically, it's the idea. Let's come back here. Okay, it's telling us at the end of days, even though we've got free will in this world, and we see bad people benefiting, having a good time, good people sometimes having a bad life, right? You're going to see that's only for the sake of free will. That's only a temporary thing. In the future, we're going to see that absolute justice. For the good person, there'll be goodness, and for the bad person, be suffering, right? As we explained many times, exactly the details of how that works. There's a technicalities and mechanics to it, all to do with how much each person reveals God, like we spoke about in the very long lecture and the summary of that lecture, which was 2 hours. The Armageddon lectures, Armageddon part 8 and 9, I believe it was, right? So just go to 9 if you don't want the 3 hour 20 minute one. If you just want a 2 hour lecture, just go to the summary, essentially, of lecture number 9 there. So the idea is that in this world things are confusing. People, and you have to generate from your own volition, your own free will. You have to persevere and try finding out what's the truth, and then once you know the truth, you push yourself to break down those barriers of your natural instincts to be lazy or to just be bad, right? And you strive to be a good person, to do the right thing, right? Especially for Jewish people, that means keeping the commandments, which is the way that we bring God's spirituality into the physical dimension, right? And later on, that will be revealed. This is the lecture about the dimensions of time, a very early lecture we gave on this channel, about the fourth or fifth one, something like that. Where we speak about the Leviathan, God slaughtering the Leviathan, the Leviathan. It means that the Leviathan is that massive fish which was created on the fifth day of creation. But on the deeper level, it's referring to Leviathan Lashon Levi, which means to connect, our connection with God. That means God slaughtering the Leviathan means in this world, the Leviathan, that means the connection with God is slaughtered or it's neutered. It's not as powerful as it should be. That means when we do the right thing, we do not experience the results straight away, right? In the world to come, it says we'll be basking in the sukkah shel Leviathan, in the tabernacle, the tent, with the skin of the Leviathan, which is referring to then we'll experience that connection with God. This is what's going on here. Yeah. In the future, we'll see the difference between a righteous and a not righteous, right? Because we'll see that when we did something good, it automatically brought light into ourselves and into the world, and it made us more similar to God, without going into the details. And the Rasha was doing the exact opposite. Is instead of bringing God in, he was trying to push God out as much as he can, and the suffering is a direct consequence of that. Because if you push your source of life, it's like a person on a life support machine, yeah, right, and it's got the plug's a bit wonky. So a righteous person is the one who pushes it in and holds it in place. The wicked person says, I don't want these like wires attached to me or whatever it is, tubes. And he starts pulling them out, right? I want to be individual and I want to be my own person. I want to be autonomous. I want to be independent of any external factors. He doesn't realize you're very dependent on your source of life there, and you pull it out, you're going to die. However, in this world, what would happen? He'd be walking around like you think, oh, I'm fine. He doesn't realize he's actually dead. He's a zombie because he's disconnected himself totally from God. In the next world, he's going to see, okay, I actually am dead, right? And he's going to experience his lack of existence because he's cut himself off from that source, God's light. It's God's the highest concept we know about God is He is existence. He is existence. Everything else happens to exist in as much as they're in proximity of God. So things which are closer to God have more existence, have more reality, have a more powerful reality. That's why if we go theoretically up the spiritual dimensions, transcending the physical one, we would see the angels and things like that, which have much more vivid reality than we do here in our physical dimension. And etc. If we go up and up, we spoke about in the Kabbalah lecture about different levels, etc. Right, of things which are closer to God's existence itself. So that's the idea. So in the future, we'll see the difference between a righteous man and the evildoer, between someone who serves God and someone who doesn't serve God. The question is, what on earth is that extra bit? Nothing is superfluous in the Torah. So when it says, the verse could have easily said, "V'shavtem re'isem," you go and you'll see in hindsight, "Ben sadik l'rasha." What the difference between a righteous and evildoer is. We could have easily finished the verse there But then it says something else. Between someone who serves God, between someone who doesn't serve God. So what is going on? So for this, we'll look at the Talmud, the Gemara in Chagiga. Chagiga is a tractate in the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, which deals with the laws of the festivals, but specifically the sacrifices which we bring on the festivals. It's actually got a lot of the Kabbalistic teachings in the Talmud. There's not that many. The Talmud's not a primarily Kabbalistic work, but the Kabbalistic parts it has in it, one of the major ones is actually the second chapter of Chagiga here. But we're in the first chapter here. So this is, by the way, this is on the website called alldaf.org. And you've got these nice rabbis here who actually go through each page of the Talmud. You can learn the whole Talmud just on this website. So might be might have to get used to some of the people who are not familiar with them, didn't have an Orthodox upbringing, whether someone's just becoming interested in Judaism who's Jewish already, or someone who's not Jewish. You want to learn about these things, you might have to get used to some of the terminology, but it's not so hard. Usually they're pretty good, these speakers. Anyway, let's focus on this. Okay, so here we go. Omale bar hey. You can see the two repeated words there. That's his name. Lehilal. I think it's Yochanan Bar Hey, I think it was. That's his name. Ben Bakbak Ben Hey is the same person. Alright. He said to Hillel, my dichsiv, what does it mean in the verse, V'shavtem Marisim? You go back and you see Bein Tzaddik the Rasha, between the righteous and the wicked, Bein Oved Elokim, between the one who serves God, Lasher Lo Yavodo, to the one who does not serve him. Hainu Tzaddik, Hainu Oved Elokim. It's the same thing. What's going on here? Oh, that's interesting. It must be a new thing on the browser. All right, okay, new tool, something like that. A bit annoying because I'd just like to highlight things without having this thing. Here we go. That's good. Okay, fine. Right, gives me the option of hiding it. Okay, so the Gemara asks, or Bar Hey asks Hillel this question: Hainu Tzaddik, that is the righteous. Hainu Oved Elokim, that is the one who serves God. Hainu Rasha, Hainu Asher Lo Yavodo, and that is surely the Rasha, the evildoer, is the same one as the one who doesn't serve him. Right? Amalei Avodo V'Lo Yavodo Travahu Tzadike Gemurei Ninhu. So he's saying that no, you misunderstand. The righteous and the wicked, you got the right idea there. But when we speak of the second part of the verse, which speaks about the one who serves God and the one who doesn't serve God, are both talking about completely righteous people, right? However, there's a difference even between the most righteous of people, which is really scary, right? Ve'eno doima, right? Why? Ve'eno doima shoyne pirkoi mea pa'omim l'shoyne pirkoi mea v'echad. Because there's no comparison between someone who is Shoina Pirka, who learns his perek, his chapter of learning, someone who does revision on his learning 100 times, to someone who does revision 101 times. Amalei. So he asked him a question. Omishum chad zimna korilei lo yavodu. Does it make sense? Surely, because of one extra time that he he only learned 100 times. He didn't do the 101st time. It's called as if he hasn't served him, right? What's going on here, right? Amalei in, yes, he said. Go and learn from the marketplace of donkey haulers, right? Okay, so these are people who take people on a journey with the donkeys, and they charge for the services. Asora parase bezuzah, right? If you want to go 10 parasa, which is about a parasa is about 4 kilometers approximately, so it'd be about 40 kilometers. Right, so it's about a day's journey, something like that. That will cost a zuz. Okay, a zuz is a unit of currency. Chadosor, but if you want to travel instead of 10, you want to travel 11 parsi, betray zuzeh. You'd have to pay 2 zuz. Right? And that's the end of this section of the discussion here. Okay. Let's go back to me now. Right, so really, really interesting. So it says so we've answered our first question. What's the difference between saying you'll be able to see the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, a righteous and a wicked, and the difference between someone who serves God and doesn't serve God, right? Because actually the second part is referring to, right, you've seen the difference between the righteous and the non-righteous. Right now, you'll see something much higher, much more nuanced now. Now, and even within that category of the tzaddik, of the righteous, you'll see there's differences between righteous people themselves. Because you've got one person, one righteous person, is one who serves God, and one is tantamount to not serving him. I think the idea is the contrast between them. That's a basic understanding. We're going to see it's more than that. So, let's try understanding. Why is it such a radical difference that between one person who serves God 101 times and the one who doesn't serve him, he only serves him 100 times? Of course, logically, we understand that God is fair. So if a person's done 1,000,000 commandments, one person's done 1,000,001, you have to say he's going to get the reward for that extra one he did. But here we're saying something more than that. He's saying there's a fundamental difference between these two types of people. It's not just you've got two people and this person's just brought God in a bit more, so he's going to experience God a bit more, right? We're going to see there's something more fundamental. But let's start off with something much, I don't know how to put it. The first approach is going to be something which is a bit more technical, but very interesting. I'm sure you all agree once you hear all this. Okay, so let's have a look. The Baal Haturim, right? The Baal Haturim is one of the commentaries, one of the most famous commentaries on the Chumash, and he basically his commentary is focused on remez, which is hints and little secrets which you can see in the verses, which are you're not translating the verses literally. You're looking for little hints and little allusions to deeper ideas. So in Shemois Parshas Kisisa, it's right at the end of the chapter which speaks about the golden calf. Right, it's chapter 32, verse 34. It says, "Hinei malachi yelech lefanecha." My angel will go in front of you. Right? What's that mean? God was saying that I don't want to put my divine presence to lead you anymore because of the Egel. I'm going to make an angel to lead the way instead. And then in the next chapter, Moses prayed and God sort of changed it back. So Malachi, and it's interesting, the name of this book, which we're just learning, is Malachi. It's Malachi. Malachi is the same word here. Your name Malachi elech lefonecha. My angel will go in front of you. And the Baal Haturim says, Malachi be Gematriah me'or ve'echad. The numerical value of Malachi is 101. So if you, let's go back to here just to demonstrate how this works. So let's look at the title. Oh, come on! It doesn't tell you the name of the book in Hebrew. My goodness! Right, here we go. Let's go back. Wait, actually, it just says the name here. Okay, fine. So this is the word Malachi. So this is the Mem Lamed Aleph Chaf Yud. So there's a idea in a very basic idea in Torah is one of the ways to derive things from the verses is you have the Gematriah, the numerical value, right? The numerical value is sort of, I think we explained it once before, that imagine there's different ways of saying the same thing. You can describe a chemical experiment, right? if you combine hydrogen and oxygen together, you get water, right? Or we can actually describe in detail. If you take a hydrogen in a flask, you light a fire underneath it, that causes a endothermic or exothermic reaction to happen, where the hydrogen combines with the oxygen, and you'll get droplets of water. Okay, or you can say a more terse version, hydrogen combines with oxygen to produce water. Or you can use a chemical equation. So that'd be 2H2 plus O2 equals 2H2O, right? With the arrow, right? So the Gematriah is like that. So you can actually speak out an idea. That would be literal translation of a verse. Or you can actually hint to the idea by sort of certain codes. So you have to know the keys. If a person does Morse code to you, dot, 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 dash, dot, whatever it is, okay, like, what's all that about? No, but if you understand the alphabet, if you got, I only know the SOS one, so dot, dot, dot is an S and dash, dash, dash is an O, so, okay, I can see what you're trying to do here. There's a code here and we have to sort of decode the code to get the idea. The same thing with Gematriah. You've got the numerical value of letters, and so each word has its own unique numerical value, and we see that other words which have the same numerical value, there is an intrinsic connection between the two there. Either they are the same idea or they can actually be opposites, two sides of the same coin. Right? So anyway, so let's go back to this this word Malachi here, right? Since we might as well use this since it's literally the same word in Exodus. Malachi's Mem is 40, Lamed is 30, Aleph is 1, Chaf is 20, and Yud is 1. So that makes 101, right? So the Baal Haturim says that this 101, right? So instead of reading, Hinei Malachi yelech lefonecha, my angel will go before you, it means the 101 will go before you. Okay? And he says even the word yelech yud lamed chaf, which is 10, 30, 60, right? He will go, has a numerical value of halacha, which means the law, it's the Torah, what you study. So instead of reading Hinei, behold, my angel will go in front of you, right? You translate it, Hinei, behold, 101, halacha is the law, lefonecha, it will be lefonecha, it's in front of you. So that's the idea, the hint here, right? And he quotes this the Talmud in Chagiga. He says it's not comparable to someone who learns 100 times to 101 times. He said because through 101 times the halacha will go in front of you. That means it will be before you. That means without 101 times, you would have learnt it, but it won't be like in front of you. Once you do 101 times, it'll be right in front of you, right? Right? Yes, it's quite amazing because there's other hints in this verse as well. Hine is also behold is also a numerical value of 60, which is the one of halacha. So you can read the verse like the halacha, the Torah, Malachi, if you do it 101 times, my angel, 101, right? Yelech, the halacha will be lefonecha, will be in front of you. So that's basically saying, if you do the halacha 101 times, then the halacha will be in front of you. Amazing, right? And also, we're going to speak, because there is an idea that we're going to speak about this in a minute, but maybe we'll preempt it now that we're speaking about the angel. There is an angel of who's in charge of forgetting, and an angel in charge of remembering. Okay, so this is the Kli Yakar is another one of the commentaries on the Chumash, on the 5 books of Moses. So in Deuteronomy chapter 4, he says, "Lest you forget the words which I've taught you." It's near the beginning of that chapter, about verse 10 something. So be very careful not to forget any of the words of the Torah, or to forget the Ma'amad Har Sinai, the event of God speaking to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. Be very careful never to forget that. Yep. So we learn from this verse that you have to be very careful never to forget any of your learning, right? Right. And he says that if people forget their learning, then God will forget you, right? So in as much as you forget your learning, you're losing your contact with God. So therefore, God's light will not be in you. So that's like God forgetting you. That's the deeper idea underlying this idea, right? And he brings our verse here in Malachi, right, about the difference between someone who serves God and who doesn't serve God. We said the difference is between someone who learns 100 times, 101 times, right? And he said a very interesting idea, right? That there's a hint here as well, right? So if we go back to chapter 3, we'll show this inside, just nice and vivid for everyone. It's a shame people don't know Hebrew. This would just be jumping out at them otherwise, but okay, what can you do? You have to break it down for people who are not Hebrew speakers. So if you have a look, V'shavtem Isem, you go and see the difference between Tzedek and Rasha, Bein Oved Elokim, Lasher Lo Yavodo. If you look at these words, Lo Yavodo, the one who does not serve him, what are the first letters of each of these two words? Lamed 30, Ayin 70, it's 100. Okay? And look at the words Bein Oved Elokim Lasher, right? The words beforehand, the ones who serves God compared to, right? So that's an ayin, same letters as before, and lamed, but you also got Elokim, the aleph. Maybe that's the 101th time, the 101st time is you've got the allusion from God's name itself, because now you've got God in the equation. Anyway, that's just an extra bit I'm adding on there. So 70 plus 1 plus 30 is 101. And lo yavodo is one who doesn't serve God. That's only 100 times. Beautiful, right? So again, you see this idea repeating. It actually alluded to in the verse itself. That's what the Kli Yakar says, right? Okay, because someone who learns 101 times, he's the one who's truly serving God, right? And then he carries on an amazing idea. If you look at two words in Hebrew, the two words of the word to remember and to forget. Shochach, shin chav ches, means to forget. Zochar means to remember. Zochar has a numerical value of Reish Kaf Zayin, is 227. Shochach is shin chav ches, which is 328. So the difference between remembering and forgetting is 101. Okay, getting more into it now. Okay, so he explains like this: there's two angels which are in charge of forgetting and remembering. Angels are basically God's messengers to deal with stuff in the world. Yeah. Deeper level, it is God doing it. It's just God's action manifests itself as a being in itself. Okay, right. So because we can't see God directly interacting in the world, because God Himself cannot change, so therefore the way that things change in the world are angels which are carrying out his will, basically, and they're the manifestations in the physical world of God. Okay, or God's actions, I should say. Right. That's why we see very often when people speak to angels, it's like they say, "But God, why do you X, Y, Z?" Right? What do you mean? He's speaking to an angel. So really, an angel is kind of the representative, just like you speak to a messenger from the king, right? And you speak to, "Oh, please, Your Majesty, have pity on me," right? You be saying that to the messenger himself, obviously, because you understand he's speaking to, he's going to carry that message back to the king. Okay. Right. So, so the difference between remembering and forgetting is 101 times. So that's what he's saying. So if a person learns 101 times, that's how you remember your learning. Okay? So I guess the idea is, he's saying that the difference between someone serving God and someone who doesn't serve God would be someone who's trying to just learn just to do his bit, or someone who's actually genuinely trying to learn it because he's interested in having that connection permanent with God. Or it's like the Haturim said, once a person has 101 times, it's in front of him. I can see the Torah. I can see my learning. Yeah, I don't have to go like this and try remembering it, because it's right in front of me. Okay? And that's the idea of studying 101 times. Because the angel of forgetfulness is more powerful than the angel of memory by 101 times. So every time you learn an extra time, you're weakening the angel of forgetfulness, and you bring him down, and eventually after 101 times, it would have caught up. The angel of memory will have caught up with the angel of forgetfulness, and basically a person won't forget anymore. Okay, very nice idea there. And there's other allusions to this idea of 101. So this is the Toras Chaim in Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin, Tzadi Tes on a base. That's 99b. Very, very, wow, that's packed. It all speaks about Messiah in those pages there in the last chapter of Sanhedrin, especially around the end of the 90s, 97, 98, 99, right? Right. And he says, he actually adds on, he says that this angel which is in charge of memory, his name is Michael. Michael is or Michael is the name of the angel, the archangel Michael, as people know him as. For non-Orthodox Jews, they just name it, Michael, right? Obviously, right. Michael is actually got exactly the same letters as Malachi, which means, right, it's just rearrange the letter, Malachi Michael, right? And we said before it's got 101, so that's a cheat to realize that Michael's got a numerical value of 101 as well, right? Right? So someone who studies 101 times, he gets the merit of this angel of memory, which is Michael. That'll help him remember his Torah, that he doesn't forget it. Right? And there's a verse which says, Ki al kaf alof pihu, that his mouth is kaf. I don't know how to translate that. Kaf, it means bent over and suppressing or something like that. Right? That word pihu is 101. And what's the significance of that? Pihu means his mouth. Because there's a medrash, and quite an obscure medrash called Medrash Chozes, not one of the more common medrashes. It takes a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, in the Song of Songs. It says, "Yisha kein b'shikos pihu kitovim didachmiyon." Right? This is the second verse in the whole book, I think. Right? Yeah, that's right. He will kiss me from the kisses of his mouth, pihu, kitovim tedechmion, because your love is greater than wine. Okay? right? So the Medrash, using drush exegesis, says that it's referring to the Jewish people when they heard God speak at Sinai. Then the Torah, which they heard, was permanently, well, we're going to see it's not that so straightforward. At that point, the Torah was stuck in their hearts, and they were just at one with the Torah, which is the connections, which is God's message. So they had an immensely powerful connection to God. And then, when they heard Moshe Rabbeinu, he repeated over the Ten Commandments afterwards. He was trying to teach them, okay, now let's learn what we learned from God, right? And they learned it and they forgot, right? And they said, Moshe Rabbeinu, our master Moshe, right? If only we can galei lonu pam sheniya, right? If only God will reveal himself a second time, then we'll then we would remember our learning. Yeah, halavai. If only Yishaken Mishikos Pihu, he would kiss us from the kisses of his mouth. Right. So you see the idea of the kisses of the mouth is God directly. We say that when it speaks about the prophecy of Moses, I think it's in chapter 13 in Numbers, right? Parshas Ba'alosecha, right at the end, where the whole chapter where Miriam and speaks to Aaron about Moses because of his wife. She was upset that he separated from his wife. She didn't realize because Moses had to speak with God at any time, so therefore it wouldn't be appropriate if he was involved in marital, right? So Moses separated from his wife because God could speak to Moses at any time, right? And he didn't realize that's what God wanted him to do. She didn't realize he was on that level of prophecy because she was a prophetess herself, but she understood that prophets only get the prophecy at night time when they're sleeping, whatever. You have to prepare for it. She didn't realize that Moses was such a special prophet that he could get prophecy literally any time. So he had to be always on call, 24/7, so to speak. So there, in that verse, when God chastises Miriam, right, for this, he says, right, when it comes to other prophets, let's bring it up. Let's bring it up quickly. Sorry, it's actually chapter 12. It's the end of chapter 12. That was close. Right, here we go. So this is chapter 12. Oh, it's the whole of chapter 12. My mistake. Okay. Miriam spoke against Moshe. You can look at all the Rashi here if you want. I'm going to put it here if people want to pause. You can look it up on the Chabad.org. This is where the only online Chumash, that's the Old Testament with the translation I can find. So it seems to be the one everyone uses. And he says, listen to my words. If you have your prophets, I'll appear to them in a picture, in a dream, but not the same with my servant Moshe. He's completely faithful throughout my whole household. Throughout my household. Peh el peh adabra. I will speak to him mouth to mouth. Right? That's a bit strange because it should be mouth to ears. Right? Umarev v'lebichidos. I will see with a clear vision and not with riddles. V'smas Hashem yabit, and he will see the image of God, whatever that means. Right? Like we said in the Rashi says, referring to Exodus 33, where Moses saw the back of God. That means obviously when we talk about God, we talk about how God reveals himself in the world. So the back of God means that you can recognize when God's doing something by looking at the back, so to speak. Looking at, but it's not the same as seeing clearly. So if you see a bad thing happening to a good person, or a good thing happening to a bad person, right? Moses was able to see clearly the justice in that, but he wasn't able to see how on the individual detailed level, why this specific person gets that good thing or that bad thing, he wasn't able to see that. That's an explanation of that. And why you're not scared to speak to my servant Moses, Moshe. But you see this reference here, pe el pe, mouth to mouth. What's the idea of mouth to mouth? The idea is that when you speak to someone, it's mouth to ear. That means you've got a giver and a receiver. So that's a normal prophet. When you have Moses, his prophecy on such a high level that it didn't come through himself. A prophet, when he receives a prophecy, God gives it to him. He filters it through his own mind, the own way he makes sense of things. As we said, it could be like a riddle, that he interprets it, and because he's very holy, his words become Torah, right? The words of the prophets. That's why they're holy books, because the words are precise. However, there is something less perfect than Moses' prophecy, as much as when they do it, they are interpreting it. Their pure minds do it. Their filter's an amazing filter, right? And so much so that the words which come out after it's gone through the filter of their own mind and interpretation become words, holy words of the prophecy. However, with Moshe, there is no filter. That's what it means, mouth to mouth, right? Mouth to mouth, it means when God speaks, it's literally when Moses moves his mouth and he says the words, it is God speaking through his mouth. Moses is so close to God that when God speaks, Moses' mouth moves. So it's like literally, I guess it's like almost like a puppet or a conduit. What's an example of that? I guess you can imagine it with AI technology now. Yeah, you got a person, who speaks. You see on these we have the Zoom calls and things like that. You can make yourself look like a cowboy or something like that, or a dog. And when you speak the words, the mouth moves in the same way that your mouth was, if it's advanced enough, right? So you're looking at a living, breathing human reflection of God speaking when you see Moses speak. That's mouth to mouth. Okay? When God speaks, it goes straight to Moses' mouth. It doesn't get filtered through his intelligence or his interpretation or anything. That's clear from those verses in chapter 12 there, in Numbers, the book of Numbers. So now, when we look at the Jewish people, when God spoke to them, the words were imprinted on their hearts. And in the book of Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim, it says, according to the Medrash Chazos, that when the Jewish people realized that I'm not remembering the learning as well when I'm hearing it from Moshe, I want to hear it directly from Hashem, from God, right? I wish that he would kiss me from the kissings of his mouth, right? The idea is when two people kiss, that's the two mouths are connecting, right? That means the mouths, that means the breath, the life force. Why do people show intimacy through kissing in the mouth? Because that's where the breath is. That's where the person's soul is. So when God gave the Ten Commandments, as an allusion to that, Anochi is a Rosh Hashanah, the first letters, Anu Nafshi Ksavos V'Hovis, I've written my soul, so to speak. Obviously, when we speak about God's soul, it's less than God. When we speak about our soul is a higher, more internal aspect of us. But God's soul, so to speak, that's the aspect where how he wants to reveal himself, but he's revealing a more internal aspect of his revelations to us, as opposed to a more external one, I guess. Right? So the Torah is basically God's spirit, or however you want to say, soul, right? Again, not to be confused with the human soul, which animates us. God's soul is a created thing, right? But it's there to help us interact with him, right? So the idea of God's soul is we're connecting with something very deep about about God, how He wants to relate to us, a very deep aspect of that. So the idea of the kisses, right? God literally, well, metaphorically, but literally as well, kissed the Jewish people, right? It's metaphorical because once we say the word kiss, you think of it physically, but conceptually, He was literally kissing us, right? When He gave us the Torah. And the Torah came into the hearts of the Jewish people. They changed fundamentally, their state of being changed at the giving of the Torah. And that's what we spoke about in the anti-Semitism lecture, that the Jewish people are fundamentally different now. Yeah, it's not just they've got another job. Their soul had to be reformed in such a way where now they've got this power to bring God into the world through the mitzvahs. If a Jew and a non-Jew would do one of the 613 commandments, not the 7 commandments which everyone's commanded on, but one of the 613, let's say a non-Jew would put the tzitzis on, right? It might have some sort of positive effect, but it will not affect God coming into the world. He might benefit from it somehow, just by the nature of the commandments are positive intrinsically, but he wouldn't have the power to bring God into the world through keeping that commandment, right? That's why he's not commanded in it, because there's no point in him focusing on those commandments, because he's not. The non-Jew's job is not to do that part of the job. His job is to do the physical part, right? To make sure that once the spirituality comes in, there's a moral, ethical society which is able to benefit from that, right? Yeah, you can't pour fine wine into dirty, broken glass, right? You want the finest vessels to hold the wine in. So it says, he will kiss me from the kisses of his lips, of his mouth, right? Right, because your words are greater than wine. So we see the Jewish people at Sinai were temporarily on the level of Moses. They had that direct mouth-to-mouth connection with God, right? And this the question is, what was Moses then? So they say that Moses was the prophecy itself, right? That's the mind-boggling idea. You have to work that one out. That's a completely different discussion, which we're not going to get into now. So that we see the idea, this idea of the Torah being ingrained on the hearts of the Jewish people and them not forgetting it, is alluded to by the Jewish people after they started to forget. Oh no, we're being taught by a human. I wish God would just speak to us a second time. Then we'd have those kisses of His mouth will cause the Torah to be permanently on our hearts, where we won't forget. What word does it use when it says, I will kiss you from the kisses of my mouth? Pihu. Pihu, for those who speak Hebrew and know Gematriah, Pei is 80, Yud, P, Yud is 10, Hu, that's Hey is 5, the Vav at the end is 6. The numerical value, 101. Again, amazing, right? We see this idea of Pihu, his mouth, that's what makes people not forget. That's the 101. We're seeing a big significance in this number 101 over and over again. What have we had so far? We've got the name of Malachi is 101, but the angel of remembering is Michael, which is 100, numerical value 101. You have the first letters of that verse, Asher lo yavodoi, the first letters of does not serve him. Lo yavoda is 100, numerical value. Oived Elokim la'asher, there's words preceding it which refers to the one who does serve God, has a numerical value of 101, right? Which is a hint to where the Talmud might have got that from, right? And we also have the idea of Hinei Malachi yelech leponecha. Behold, my angel will go in front of you. Hinei if I transpose the words based on the numerical value, the word reads, Hine, behold, the halacha, the law, Malachi, my angel, which is 101. If you do 101 times, right, it's also referring to the Malach Michael, probably, this angel, in the Remez anyway. My angel, if you access this level of 101, and therefore you get the angel to help you remember, right? Hinei Malachi, the halacha is 101, or the angel which represents 101, the one of memory, right? Yelech, the halacha, it will go lefonecha, in front of you. Yeah, the Torah 101 times will be Torah which is in front of you. That's the idea, right? And we said again, Mishikos Pihu, the idea of Pihu, his mouth. That's the idea of the Medrash, which speaks about the Jewish people remembering the Torah, right? And they did that through having God directly speaking to them through the kisses of His mouth, right? Very holy book, the Shir HaShirim. It's referring to a very, very deep relationship the Jewish people have with God, right? And Okaf Alav Pihu, the idea of he suppressed on him his mouth, right? Pihu, that's 101. The word Okaf as well, to suppress as well. Okaf, Aleph, Kaf, Pei, also 1, 20, 80, right? Also 101, right? Okay, so that's all these different allusions to the number 101 here. What's the takeaway from here? The person learns 101 times, he's not going to forget it. So what do you mean? So someone who doesn't serve God, that's someone who learns 100 times. What was the idea of an Eved? An Eved, a servant, is someone where his whole essence, his whole personality, his whole existence is only there to be subjugated to the master. Whatever the master says, I do. That's what an Eved is. Someone where, very similar to what we said before, God speaks, Moses' mouth moves. Right? He's called Eved Hashem. He's called the servant of God. Moshe Eved Hashem. Right? Many times in the Bible. I think it's many times, at least once. So, when we speak about the one who serves God, is connected, as we see from all these sources, is someone who remembers his learning. And that happens through learning 101 times. Okay, spiritually we explained why there's an angel, the difference between the angel of remembering, the angel of forgetting. To bridge the gap, you learn 101 times that you'll never forget it, right? And I can say for sure it's absolutely true. There are certain things which I've learned, very few things I've learned 101 times, you don't forget them. You don't forget them. My brother in Israel, there's actually a method of doing revision where you end up doing 101 times. You do 20 times on the day which you learn it, and then the next day you do revision over those 20, and then there's a whole system, yeah, and you use a counter or something to, right, but anyway, but obviously you don't just do blah, 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 blah. You're not just saying the words mindlessly, you're thinking about it every time, so it gets further in. So to become a true Eved, a true servant of God, that means your whole being has to be subservient to God. That means God's permanently with you. That means it's not like you serve Him and then you go to sleep, right, 11 o'clock, whatever, at night, and then you wake up in the morning, early before the master gets up, 7 o'clock, you're ready to serve, whatever. That's not a real servant. A real servant's on call 24/7, like Moses, right? Right, a true servant, always ready for the master to speak to him. So that means to be a true servant, the words of Torah or God's message has to be permanent in you. It cannot be forgotten. Right? That's the beauty of this. See all these ideas coming together now. Okay, so that's the first approach. Right? So summarizing it once more, the idea of 101 is spiritually there's a certain power of learning something 101 times. It helps the person remember. Remembering means that it becomes part of you. Something, if a person puts a sticker on your hand, that's not part of you because you can peel it off. It's temporarily part of you. You can wear a glove and the glove can function as an extension of your body, right? Or even a tool or something like that. But you can always put the tool down, take the glove off, peel the sticker off. That's not you, right? When the Torah becomes part of you, it changes you. Now, let's say a person's heart, it's got Torah as part of it. The only way to remove the Torah from that person's heart, if you've learned 101 times, is by removing the heart. But then you remove the person, you've killed him. So therefore now the idea of remembering permanently is the concept that the Torah, or whatever you're learning, is part of you. You're inseparable from that thing now. And when you're talking about the Torah, which is the word of God, which carries within it the divine light of God, you are permanently connected with God. Okay? Now you're truly a servant of God because you've got that permanent connection to Him. You're not serving Him for 20 hours a day or 16 hours a day, right? You've got that connection in a permanent way. It's a beautiful idea. Okay, there's many more things I could say about this. All right, I'll quickly add on. That's why King David, one of the people who was persecuting him, was actually a very, very great sage called Doeg HaAdomi, right? But he did a terrible, terrible sin, and he was persecuting David completely unjustified. He was causing a rift in the Jewish people. This person was a very, very evil person, right? Even though he was extremely, they said that he was the wisest sage in the generation. Everyone else in front of him would be like grass on the field. He'd be sitting there. All the other scholars, which were geniuses at that time, right, had prophets there, they'd be like grass. Even so, he incited King Saul to persecute King David, and he ended up killing a whole town of Kohanim who was suspected of helping David unwittingly. They didn't realize there was anything wrong with that. They thought, well, there's a son-in-law of King Saul, of course we're going to help him. And in the end, he's a very evil person. The thing is, David said, I want him to get the appropriate punishment. The problem is, his Torah learning is too powerful. It's going to protect him. So King David did an incredible thing. I'm not getting into the rationale behind it completely here, but this is what he did. He prayed to God, please punish this person, right? Punish him. He deserves punishment. He's desecrated your name in a massive way. Punish him, but make him forget his Torah learning. Amazing. King David said, make him forget his Torah and kill him and send him down to Gehenna, to hell, right? Where hopefully eventually he'll get his rectification. Very, very hard for such a person. Terrible, one of the worst people in history, right? Despite the fact that he was very knowledgeable, right? So King David had to say, get rid of his Torah learning. Make it not part of him. Why? Because you can't punish someone, right, who's connected with you. Because what's punishment is you're making them experience their lack of connection with you. But this person, paradoxically, was able to have the Torah, so he was technically connected with God, but yet he deserved not to be there. It's sort of like in the Garden of Eden, right? After Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, right? God said, let's make sure we chuck him out of the garden, right? And put swords there, lest he come and eat from the tree of life and live forever. And then he can never get rectification. right? Because he's going to be a permanent being, but he has to die in order to get his rectification for the sin of eating of the knowledge. Death is essential because you have to root out the idea of rebelling against God, right? So, I've got my own existence, I've got my own life, right? And if you want to exist like that, separate from God, and you want to make that permanent, well, how are you going to be similar to God now? You permanently made yourself apart from God. So death is the way that the suffering, we spoke about many times, how suffering corrects sin, right? We're not going into that again. We spoke about many, many times the mechanics of that. Beautiful idea. So death is necessary, and then once Adam gets resurrected, and now he's got rid of the impurities and the damage he absorbed or put into himself through the sin of the eating of the tree, he's able to then take from the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life, which is the Torah, by the way, right? But the root of what we call the Torah, and live forever. So Doeg, he was connected with the Eitz Chaim so deeply, the Torah was really with him. So you can't punish such a person, because it's a contradiction. Punishing means experiencing their distance from God. But someone who's got Torah is close to God. Again, how he managed that, I don't know. He learnt for the wrong reasons. Okay, whatever. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's very hard to explain that. But that's what it was. So David said, disconnect the Torah from him, make it ooze out, right? So it's on his heart, not part of him anymore. It's just on the surface, right? Then make him forget it completely, right? Then you can kill him, and then send him to have his rectification in hell, right? Okay, amazing idea, right? So that's the idea of remembering. So that's the idea of a true servant of God is someone whose whole being is connected with God permanently. Beautiful idea, right? That's a servant. You can have a righteous person, but he's got his own things. I'm not doing everything for God. I'm righteous. I keep all the commandments like I'm meant to, right? Nothing I do wrong. I don't do any of the sins. I do fulfill all the positive commandments, the affirmative ones. But are you do the right thing, but are you the right thing? There's a difference between doing and being. Someone who serves God, he becomes a different person. He becomes subservient, subjugated, and at one with God, in as much as that's possible, which is the whole purpose of creation. I hope you see this all coming out, all these ideas. Yeah. Because let's give a couple more ideas now, and we'll see how they all come together. That's the beauty of Torah. You get so many different explanations, and you see they all come together in one massive idea. The Tosafos Rid, that's another Rishon, is someone who lived, one of the sages' commentaries on the Talmud, lived about probably around 800 years ago. He says, "Hachochma me'ayin temotzei." Wisdom, where does it come from? Me'ayin, from nothingness. We spoke about this when we spoke about the 5 levels in the Kabbalah lecture we gave. The 5 levels of nothingness, something, him, you, me. Right. Ayin means the thing which transcends. That's keser. That's the thing which is the crown, which is above the person. Whereas chochma, the right brain, is the first stage through which God's light enters a person. That's chochma, right? So chochma, wisdom, Torah, me'ayin, from ayin, that means from above, timotzei, right? The numerical value of me'ayin is, guess what? Mem is 40, Aleph is 1, Yud is 10, Nun is 50, is 101. So this teaches us that the Torah comes from me'ayin, from that transcendent source, right? So if you want to get the Torah, right, it has to be 101. So you have to learn 101 times to get that me'ayin. If you want if I had told you this before the lecture, wow, what a nice idea. But now connect it what we've learned until now. That's what we do. We're showing how all these ideas are really this different facets, different angles of seeing the same idea. Yeah. If you want to get that level of Torah where you are transcending, you're connecting with God, me'ayin, yeah, you have to get the 101. You need 101 to get there. 101 will, as we explained, either if you look at it from terms of the angel, 101 times it makes the angel of forgetfulness weaker, or you're getting help from the angel of memory that gives you the 101. The 101 gives you memory, right? From Michael, 101, right? Pihu, the idea of God's mouth, the mouth-to-mouth connection with God, it's 101, right? Right? Over Elokim Asher is 101. The first letters of these three words makes 101. And now we say me'ayin. You want to have that connection with God, and that wisdom to come into you, that wisdom which you want inside of you, me'ayin tim. So it has to come from outside of you. So therefore you have to access that which is outside of you. That is the idea of 101 in terms of transcending above where you are and realizing that you are not within yourself the owner of the Torah. Whenever you how do we do this? Like a battery, yes? Imagine you've got you either put let's say you've got a toy car or something like that. You put a battery in and it can run fine. But let's say you've got the car instead, it's attached by a wire into a plug. Right? So it's not self-sufficient anymore. The car realizes, metaphorically, that I can only drive in as much as the wire is still connected to the plug, and to the plug, which into the plug hole, the plug socket. Once the car drives and it pulls out the plug, it loses everything. So that's the idea of chokhmah me'ayin timotze. If you want the Torah to be inside of you, realize it's coming from a transcendent place, and that you only have it in as much as you're connected to the source of knowledge. Right? And of course, that's the idea of the Torah being our connection with God. And that's how you truly serve God. You truly serve God by realizing that, you don't look at yourself, I've learned so much Torah. So no, wait, have humility. Realize that all the Torah I have is just coming from above. I'm still nothing. Right? Gratitude, humility, and therefore serve. You're a servant. Right? It's very similar to the idea of two types of politicians. Almost all of them, and then you've got the very few. Almost all of them are like, I'm a servant of the people, right? Yeah, but it's a facade, they're really serving themselves, yeah? It's ego, right? They've got power. A real humble politician is someone who says, yeah, I'm just there to make the world better for everyone, right? Everything I do is in order to make everyone else's life better, right? That's a real servant, right? So similarly with God as well. The person can say, look, I serve God, look at me, yeah, I've learnt so much Torah, look, I'm so proud to be a servant, but that's you're missing the point. You might do everything perfectly, but that aspect of service you don't have. You're missing that point that everything you have is still coming only from God. That transcendent keser, the ayin. Okay, that's how the Tosafos Rid's explanation, according to my understanding, will tie in with these other explanations. Now let's have a look. Another approach is, let's have a look at the actual analogy that it gives. There's an analogy. How do you understand the difference between 100 and 101? Ben Hehe says, how does one extra time make a massive difference? So what does Hillel answer him? He says, look at the donkey rider. The donkey rider, when he travels for 10 parsas, he charges 1 zuz. He travels another parsa, 11 parsas, it costs 2. So what's going on? So it's the idea that there's a fundamental difference between serving God 100 times and 101 times. How do we understand that? So, if you think about it psychologically, right? I think it's brought down this explanation. Different people, we've got different versions of this explanation. But it ties in what we just said in the Tosafos Rid about the idea of you feeling good in yourself, right? If you want to show the extent of your Torah knowledge, what would you do? Say, I've learnt Shas. Shas means the 6 books of the Talmud, 6 volumes with 63 odd tractates in it, right? They would say, look at me, I've learned the whole of Shas. Well, how many times? 2, 3, I've learned 100 times. 100 is a nice round number, right? So it's psychological, right? It's not so spiritual anymore, right? People want to do things where it feels perfect, where you feel good. You say, right, I've done this mitzvah just perfectly. I've done this commandment. I made sure I thought the right things when I sang the blessing, and when I held the lulav or the esrog, I shook it exactly 1, 2, 3, and I make sure I shake the top, and then I turn the thing, and I thought about this and did this. I did the mitzvah perfectly. You feel good about yourself, right? True avodah is realizing that I'm nothing even after I've done it. Even after I've done everything perfectly, I'm still nothing. Because I only get this opportunity from God, right? Right? So it's the idea of the people who serve 100 times have got a little bit of ego still left, right? Once you've done it 100 times and you're exhausted, I've learned this 100 times, let's just do it one more time, right? One person will say 100 times, right, done 100 times, go to bed now. The one says 100 times, let's serve God a bit more. Let's do one more just for Him. Like we said in the verse there, the number 1, when you add 30 and 1 and 70, that 1, to get 101, Ben Oved Elokim, Elokim is God, the Elokim is Aleph, which is the numerical word. That extra 1, that's for God, right? You're breaking your habits. You're showing you how much you love God. You're bursting through your natural boundaries in order to serve God, just for the sake of serving God, not for a sense of satisfaction, of completion in yourself. 100, I do 101. Oh, you don't have that nice round number anymore, right? That's what the 101 is, right? You're choosing to go beyond your natural. Because people say, 98, we're almost at 99, 100, yes. Because you've got a natural pull towards 100, because you've got a sense of completion when you hit 100, right? But 100, imagine there's a game which goes up to level 500, yeah? And you've got level 70, 75, let's make a target, 100. Level 100. Don't anyone say, level 100, let's get to level 101, and then we'll stop for the night, right? We'll stop playing the game. You won't, because 100 gives you a sense of completion. 101 gives you a sense that I might have completed it, but there's so much more to do. And so you can say that where your natural tendencies finish at 100, your true service of God starts at 101. Okay? Now we also understand why it's double the payment as well. It wasn't just like for 10 you give 1 zuz, and for 11 you give 1.5 zuz, right? To demonstrate this extra bit is more significant than all the previous bits, right? If it was 11, it should be 1.1 zuz. So it could have said 1.5. Why did it say 2? Because it's showing you that the first 10, that's one journey. The extra parsa, the extra 4-kilometer measurement, right? The extra measurement of distance is its own journey in itself. It's a completely new journey. It's tantamount to the previous journey. So that's why the example it gives is 10. Why does he say 10 parasas and then one extra one? Because 10 is a nice round number. So a businessman says, all right, okay, how much do you want to travel? 10 parasas? Our standard distance is 10 parasas. 10, fine. Okay. You want, actually, I need to go 11. Oh, come on. That completely messes up the way I structure everything. I'm going to have to break the structure just for you. So, I'll tell you what. Instead of considering it as 11, I'll consider it as 10. And then you've got another, and you're hiring me for another journey. And it just happens to be one. Sort of like the way taxis got like a minimum charge for a certain distance, right? Right? So that's what's happening here, right? A person who learns 100 times, right? Or you can extend it to anything which is to do with serving God. He prays 100 times, or whatever it is, but it's specifically to do with learning there. Okay, so we'll stick to the learning aspect of it. A person who learns 100 times, yeah, that's a Dover Shalom. That's a complete entity. Fine, very good, right? If you learn just that extra one time, that's wow. That's you're serving God on a completely different level now. You're not serving, as we said before, you're not serving it just to be in yourself, to have a sense of completion, which is maybe a personal target, right? You're showing that you're pushing that extra bit. That extra bit is a whole new serving of God, right? In fact, we've said it's even more than that. Now you're serving God, right? So what can we take away from this? All right. So let's sum up everything, and then we'll do a takeaway from all that we said. So we said that there's a difference between someone who serves God and someone who doesn't serve God, and the Gemara says, the Talmud says, that's referring to someone who learns 101 times as opposed to 100 times. And we saw all those amazing sort of allusions with the number 101, with the numerical value of certain words, 101, or the first letters of Oved Elokim Hashem is 101. Eino Lo Yavodo, someone who doesn't serve, is only numerical value of 100, which is beautiful because that's literally the verse which we learn 100 and 101 from. Yeah, the verse in Malachi. And we see that the idea of Pihu, his mouth, the idea of learning from God directly, transcending the idea of Ayin-Transcendent, from where, from nothingness. That means the bit which is above us, which we don't have access to. We're trying to connect to that transcendent source of knowledge, right? That means you're going out of your natural boundary. You're not just learning something which is comfortable. You're pushing yourself to learn something which is beyond you, because you realize that ultimately the Torah is beyond us, and we're just getting a few sparks of God's divine light, hopefully. And the more we connect with God through the study of Torah, through his message, through his instructions to mankind, the more we're connecting with him, the more we're understanding him, what he wants. What do you want, God? I told you what I want. Read the Torah, learn the Torah, right? And then we learn it on such a way where we're not just learning it as an intellectual exercise in itself, but we feel comfortable. I've learned the whole Torah. I did 100 times, finished. Now let's go into something else. So no, someone who serves God, there's no limit. There's no end to the study, right? Once we've reached a level of knowledge of God, and we feel, wow, I finally understand it. Now push further. Don't rest on your laurels. Keep learning, keep pushing, right? So the question is, what's the cause and what's the effect? That's a good question. Is it because of 101 times you get access to that angel which helps you remember and pushes away the angel of forgetfulness? And because you're striving to internalize the Torah inside of yourself, that makes you a servant of God? Or is it the fact that, I think it's probably the other way around, but the truth is probably both answers are correct. There's probably a transcendent reason why the angel after 101 times helps you remember, and why 101 times psychologically you've shown that you really mean it, you really are determined to connect with God, despite the fact that you're making it look a bit untidy. It's not a neat 100 anymore, right? The two ideas go together, but if you want to think about it logically, I would say, yeah, God says, I want to see if you really serve me. Serve me 100 times. Okay, fine. Yeah, that could just be because you enjoy learning and you move on to something else later. You do 101 times. Wow, that's dedication. You've shown that you're not comfortable in just like the nice round numbers, not that nice sense of completion. The complete number, which is 100, 100 represents the idea of completion, perfection, of oneness, a whole, 10 by 10, completion. You're going beyond. That means you want to transcend. You want to get in touch with me. Right. So you want to go in touch with me. So midah k'neged midah, measure for measure, I'm going to let you connect with me. Like the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, where the Torah becomes permanent. So therefore, I'm going to make sure that once you hit 101, I'm going to make my angel come along, the one, and he's going to make sure you remember your learning. And therefore, you'll permanently connect with me because you've shown you want to be a true servant. I'm going to give you the ability to be a true servant and have that constant connection with me, like a servant who serves 24/7, not just one which goes to sleep at night and wakes up in the morning, and then he starts serving again. I'm going to, as a reward, because you've shown you want to have a permanent connection with me, I'm going to give you that permanent connection as a reward. Okay, so that's the idea, and that's generally how we have to approach serving God. Generally, yeah. Of course, we have to have. We spoke about this in the Lishma about doing things altruistically in that lecture there. Of course, we have to have external drive sometimes because life is not perfect. It's not as if like, okay, I'm going to learn 101 times. It's just not practical. Yeah, there was a yeshiva, an academy in London called the Schneider's Yeshiva. I think they had two brothers there. Rav Dov Sternbach and his brother Rav Moshe Sternbach, Rav ben Chaim L'chaim. Rav Moshe Sternbach's the head of the Jewish courts in Jerusalem now. And Rav Dov, the younger brother, I think he's the younger brother, right? He's not with us anymore. Maybe he was the older one. I'm not sure actually. He said that when I was in Schneider's Yeshiva, I was one of the bad boys. Yeah, I used to learn only 80 times every day. They used to learn a page of the Talmud, which can take some people a few weeks to get to. But these people were just amazing. Learned with energy and dedication. And they learned not just once or twice, he learned 80 times in a day. Wow. And he said, that was me. I wasn't one of the good boys there, right? Yeah, my brother, with the gated Rav, Rabbi Rakov, also passed away a few years ago. 15 years ago now, must be 20 years ago. Maybe even more, actually. I can't remember. So they learned 101 times. So you have an example here of people that actually managed to learn 101 times a page of Gematriah in a day. Incredible. So yeah. But I think the takeaway from this is the attitude. When we're learning, we should strive not to be comfortable when we reach a certain level of knowledge. Because remember, the Torah is infinite. You can go infinitely deep. Obviously, there's a limit to how broad you can go in the amount of texts which we have, obviously, right? There's not an infinite number of books of the Torah, but there's an infinite level of depths. Once you get to a certain level of depth, then you go into the Kabbalistic depths, and that truly does go forever, right? Talking about the infinite realms. However much we can understand now, there's parts of our minds which will be opened up when the Mashiach comes. We'll be able to understand things much deeper than we would have otherwise. And eventually in the world to come, where the whole pleasure of the world to come is just getting more and more knowledge about God, which means us experiencing the reality of God, us living with the light of the Torah, which is God's divine light. That is the closeness to God, which we always talk about. It's just a total awareness of infinity, and that pleasure that knowledge is the infinite pleasure, right? Which contains all other pleasures, right? That's just strive more, never stopping. So if a person has a bad day, I learned today XYZ, I'm going to rest. Just one extra thing, just to show I'm not just going to learn and be happy with my daily schedule. Learn something random, extra. Learn something here. Go over what you learnt just an extra time. Something which is just a bit uncomfortable, which is outside of your comfort zone. Just to show, not just to show, but to demonstrate, but to actually apply the idea that we're serving God when we're studying, even though it's pleasurable to study. Just push that little bit extra, because that little bit extra could be that little bit extra which makes all the difference, which shows that you are truly serving God and not just following the rules, doing things by rote. You're showing you've got that real connection, that real desire, that love for God that pushes you beyond your boundaries. All right, thanks for listening, and hope people enjoyed that, and hopefully more lectures to come. Thanks for listening. All the best.